Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Jamie. It is December 28th, Wednesday, 2022, as we come to the year end here. Hope everyone had a nice Christmas, nice holiday, whatever you did for the weekend, and as you get ready to go into the new year. So all I really want to talk about here for a few minutes is extreme volatility. And I'm going to use Tesla as a reference because that's probably one of the biggest stories in the headlines for stocks, at least for companies, and there's a lot of opinions on that and why it's happening and where it's going and all that kind of stuff, which I won't get into. I've listened to a lot of videos, right, from the news as well as from influencers. Some are professional hedge fund managers or traders, and some are just influencers that have big followings that are invested in the company. And I just wanted to get perspective and then have my own opinion. But what I really thought was interesting, if I was talking to one of my sons or my daughters are still kind of young, but in life you get a lot of this extreme volatility. You can probably hear my voice. I'm still recovering from some nasal things that I had going on there, and I was also sick. I'm on amoxicillin, which is like a penicillin. I had a nasal infection, and it was a rough couple weeks. And for the most part, I got through it. I had some miserable nights, tough time sleeping, breathing, coughing, pain, discomfort, right? All these combination of things that you go through that aren't comfortable. And there's times where it could be with your spouse, your child, somebody you work with, where you get in these situations where it's not comfortable. It's scary. It's really scary, and you could fill in the blank with whatever that might be for you. I like to say that nobody's pain is greater than their own, even though you might be able to identify, like if you cut your finger, I cut mine. I mean, we both can say, hey, man, that hurts, right? But it's your own discomfort you're going through. So you could try to have empathy for people that are suffering, again, whatever it might be. But in the world of investing, which is what I'm trying to get across in these videos, is the importance of saving money now. And I don't mean in a checking account or savings account. What I mean is looking for the best opportunities to make your money compound and grow, which is nothing that was taught to me as a young man, a teenager, or in my 20s. Only started to figure it out slightly in my 30s, and really it was in my late 30s, early 40s where I started to really understand better and be able to listen to where to put the money. So what's happening with Tesla right now is an amazing illustration, because to sum it up, beginning of the year, Tesla was evaluation, right? Market cap was 1.2 trillion. That's fact. It was actually a little bit over that. I think it was 1.24 trillion dollars. I know that because I've heard it so many times. And it's not because I follow it. I have an Excel spreadsheet or anything like that. But that is correct. Now, whether it was worth that or not, I don't know. And I was listening to a guy this morning, and he shows different clips of all the different news stations and these reporters and analysts and stuff like that, and he just kind of roasts them, because he's a real nerd with data, and I think the guy's great. But he was saying that Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Chipotle have a higher PE ratio than Tesla, which I thought was interesting, because if you look at a forward market with all the products and services that Tesla has now and is releasing, meaning they have the semi-truck, they have the Cybertruck, they have the AI, the FSD, all these different things. It's just a lot of stuff. Where I don't think they're just a car company. I think they are a technology company as well. And in 5 to 10 years from now, we'll probably see that. I don't know what the company will be worth, 4 trillion, 10 trillion, whatever it's worth. But what you're going through right now, right, whether you're invested in Google or Apple, whether you're invested in Amazon or whatever the company is, Tesla is a strong company that is suffering immense selling pressure, right, where people are trying to make sense. And a lot of people that are invested, including myself, and if I drew a line again, which I'm not going to have time to edit this, otherwise I'll never post it, but short-term investing versus long-term investing. If you're a long-term investor and you're just buying a share of a company and you don't borrow money, right, whether you borrow money externally or if you borrow margin against your broker, then you just own the share. And if the share goes down, then the value of the company, if the value of the company goes down, the stock goes down, then your stock isn't worth as much as when you bought it. So if you bought it for $1 and it goes down to 50 cents or a quarter, the only way you're going to lose, right, is if you sell the stock, right, basically your share of the stock. And that's it. So long-term investing, most people are, 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. And they're not really, it's not that they want it. I'd want it always to go up, but it just doesn't work that way. So if the companies pull back and it goes down, and I'm like, well, I'm not touching that money, although it pains me if I look at it and see it down 35, 40%, like real talk. It's not good to look at. But if you're not touching that money, then you're not as concerned, not because you shouldn't have a care in the world, but I'm just saying that you're not going to be as concerned because you don't need access to that money. And you're like, well, it's down, but I think in another 2 or 3 or 5 years, it will be back up and hopefully will skyrocket. And if you're adding, right, then you're averaging your costs and all that stuff, dollar cost averaging. On the other token, which is where I'm really just trying to give you an example, I myself, like a lot of people, trade Tesla. I was trading Tesla, doing really well, until the past week of just 5%, 8%. Yesterday it was almost 11.5%, and then after hours another 2%, 14% drop, which is pretty damaging to your account. Now, if you're using margin, which I am using margin in that Robinhood account because I do mostly options there, I get a margin call and I either have to sell the shares or add more money, okay? And I don't like adding money and I don't like selling shares. And you could try to wait a little bit and see if, a correction will come, because typically when an RSI, relative strength index, drops below a certain level, it will come back up. It'll have some type of relief. It will go back to some degree, right? Well, I haven't seen that in a week and for about 7 days, where it's just been further and further and further. And I think of those Dragon Ball Z, if you know what I'm talking about, cartoons, anime. My sons used to watch that, and I watched it with them, where the character would just get pummeled right into the ground. And then when you think, wow, man, that guy is beat up. And then the Super Saiyan guy would come and, pound him through the ground even further. It's like, wow, now he's really beat up. And then they'd beat him up even, further, right? And it would just be total destruction and devastating, to where they were fighting. And you'd have to see it to really, oh yeah. And then it also made me think of, I like to use illustrations. There's a movie, it's called Backdraft, if you guys remember that movie. It's a Ron Howard movie, and Kurt Russell was in it. I couldn't tell you the whole thing, but it was basically about an arsonist killing people. And it turns out to be another fireman, and Kurt Russell is one of the good guys. And at the end of the movie, they discover who it is, and the Kurt Russell character is shocked that it's his buddy, and what he's doing is wrong. So they're fighting in this burning building, I believe it is, and everything is burning around them. And the guys are fighting with an axe, because the firemen carry this axe. So it's a pretty dramatic scene. And then all of a sudden, because of the fire, where they're standing gives way, and the bad guy, who is Kurt Russell's character's friend, falls. He's going to fall to his death, but at the last second, Kurt Russell dives and grabs him, and they're kind of locked in the arms, and the guy who was his friend, even though they were just fighting, and the guy is a killer for his own reasons, he says, "Let me go," and I can't think of his name, but he's like, and here's Kurt Russell, and if you guys know Kurt Russell's face, he's kind of rugged, he's Snake Plissken, right? So he's sitting there, sweating, beat up, fire everywhere, and he's like, "If you go, we go," because that was their motto, right? Like the brotherhood. And he's just white knuckling it. He will not let go, regardless. He was committed to whatever was going to happen. And then sometimes in life, you have to make that decision, regardless of what it might look like or how it feels, to handle this extreme volatility. And I can give you lots of illustrations and examples that maybe you will connect with, but there's times where you go through something and you're like, I think this is worth fighting for. Again, whether it's your spouse, a child, somebody that you work with that you think is a great employee, or someone that has the potential. It could be your own company. It could be a piece of property that you like, I can see what it's going to look like when it's done. And even though it's painful and I got to go through these, rehabilitations of the property, like, plumbing and electrical and roofing and siding and landscape and septic and all those things, that if you've experienced that and spend the money and the time and permits, but the end result, that's when the neighbor's like, wow. In the beginning, like, oh, look at that disaster. What did he get himself into? But when it's done, everybody's complimenting you. Like, wow, well, great job, man. That looks fantastic. Can I take a tour? Right? And that's what happens a lot of times, is people love when you're winning. People love when things are going up, right? But what I've learned at my age, at this point in my life, as I approach 50, is that volatility is a part of life, and in fact, it can help you be a stronger person, man or woman, and it'll help you have some clarity of what you're doing. So when I look at Tesla as an example, and the money that I'm investing in that company, though it pains me, I don't have the same panic and fear as I would have, say, 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, because I'm like, okay, if I get liquidated and if I lose it all, right? Like, I start looking at what are the things that can happen. So the money I put into that Robinhood account with the goal of getting it to 100 grand, and I got up to almost 30. It was like 25 and change, 28, somewhere between 25 and 28. And then it's down, I don't know, I don't even know what's at right now, but it's probably around 10 grand. I'm down probably almost 20 grand just with Tesla in that account. Forget about the other stuff. So I'm like, oh man, and it just wouldn't be realistic for me to think that I'm going to recover in a few days. It's just not likely, right? So you got to accept certain things. Say, okay, I'm holding on. Everything's burning around me. What am I going to do? Am I going to give up? No. I'm just like, okay, I can either sell those shares or some of those shares and do that taxed harvesting, which is fine, or I can see where it goes and probably have to liquidate some of those shares to stay above margin, which, if I have to do that, I will. Or I could just throw 10, 20, 30 grand in there, which I'm not saying that like, just throw 10, 20 grand. And that's not what I mean. Because some people can put millions in. I can't put millions in. But if I threw some money into it, that would solve the problem. But that's not what I was trying to accomplish with that. I was trying to show that if you start with $500 or $1,000 in any brokerage account, and regardless of all the different companies that you can invest in, I mean, things are going to happen that are out of your control. I have no control over what's happening in China, the COVID, the Shanghai plant. I have no control over the Feds raising rates, an impending hard recession coming in the first quarter, Elon buying Twitter and his dumb statements that he makes, and Elon being Elon, as they say. Like, I have no control of all those different things any more than I would if I was all in on Google or on Amazon or Microsoft or Neo or, I don't know, whatever, fill in the blank company. But you got to go somewhere and kind of figure out, this is what I'm committed to, and then look at your options and say, okay, well, here, this is where I'm at. Where do I go from here? What's the best strategy from here? And even before that, you should kind of have an idea of where you were going, and then these unexpected things happen. But whether you invested $500 or $50,000 or whatever, $500,000 or $5 million bucks. Most people that are doing that, I should say most people. A lot of people doing that should, in my opinion, go into it saying that I could lose this, this could come down to a point where it's not profitable, and I might have to wait months or years before it recovers, and it's going to totally take me off the path. If you ever taken a wrong turn in life, right? I've done that before, and I'll leave you with this story. One time when I was very young, a teenager, I'd broken up with a girlfriend. I went back to Rhode Island, the girl I was dating in Florida. It was a breakup, a longtime girlfriend. I was devastated, and she wouldn't answer my calls or my letters. And my buddy says, let's jump in the car and go see her. I'm tired of seeing you depressed. And, I'm a 17, 18, or no, I actually was 18, 19 years old. And so we jumped in the car. We drove 24 hours. We both took turns and drove all the way to Florida. I saw the girl. I didn't get the girl, but, we talked. I felt better. I had some closure. And I was like, hey, I just drove 24 hours straight. I mean, that's like a love story, right? 1,500 miles just to come see you. And she listened to me, but she didn't fall in my arms and kiss me. So we lived happily ever after. But I got some closure, and then I drove back home. Literally, just had to drive right back. And I was so tired from that trip and just emotionally worn out that I got in the wrong, I forget if he did or I did, but one of us got in the wrong exit. And instead of going up north, we were going towards Key West from, we were in like the Fort Myers area, Cape Coral, Fort Myers area. And I drove for like 3 hours. We drove for like 3 hours before we realized we were going to go in the wrong way. That's a long time, right? You've gone 3 hours in the wrong direction. You got to go 3 hours to go back. But this is what happened. This is what we had to do, and we made a mistake. That was a mistake because of this, the circumstances and just being young and inexperienced. So, but what happened is we turned around and we recovered the lost ground, and I made it back, right? So sometimes things happen in life where it can be very discouraging and disheartening and traumatic and scary that you're going to go through this extreme volatility, not just here. And you have to kind of plant yourself, and hold on and decide what it is you're committed to doing. And you might think that's dumb. You may not think, well, that's not, what are you talking about? But I mean, that is my opinion. And whatever successes I have had, I have found that if I act in anger, if I act straight up on emotion, it's usually the wrong decision. I usually regret it later, right? Because I acted how I felt, right? Versus if I said, okay, I can recognize how I feel, but let me think this through. Let me clear my head and make the right decision. So if you're a Tesla stockholder, or just in general, you're just like, man, this whole market is down and it's tough to trade and make money, or it's tough to watch, this and everything just kind of not crumbling down, but like, things on fire, right? Like there's things that seem like a lot of panic and fear and uncertainty out there. You're going to be okay. Things are going to be all right, one way or the other. You're going to be all right. Just make sure that your basic needs are met. Make sure that you're not in over your head. And if you are, recognize it and have a strategy. And if you're not sure, get help. Talk to somebody that can help you, right? Someone who is able to give you some good counsel, not put you down and make you feel bad. Just say, okay, I made a mistake. How do I turn around? Like, what do I need to do here? And it might be a painful turnaround, right? It may be some time consuming, but you got to figure that out. And I think that's really the point I want to get across is I'm sure there's a lot of people, especially here during the holidays, that when I look at my account, I'm using that Robinhood account. I'm like, man, I'm down 37%. It's not a good feeling, right? And I think, but I'm a little bit stronger. Just like if I go out in the cold and I'm walking with my little daughter, right, and she's all bundled up, I might pick her up and carry her across some certain areas because I'm able to withstand it better than she is, right? Than the child, and she feels safe, like dad's gonna get her where she needs to go. So I think I'm not saying I'm your daddy, but I'm saying, like, if you're having a rough time, just understand that, like, you can get through this. It's uncomfortable, but things are going to change. 3, 6 months, a year. It may be further out. It's just like the seasons. But if you're in a rough spot, don't like give up. Don't like do anything dumb, right? And sometimes people hurt themselves, right? I don't mean like they just killed themselves. Right? I mean, they might, you know, go out drinking or get destructive, or they punch a wall, or they yell at a spouse, or they blow up on a child, or they blow up at work. I've seen all these different things happen where they hurt themselves, right? Because of these pressures, these things that are happening that really affect them. So it's just not worth it. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking this morning. I don't have any chart to show you. I don't have any fundamentals or technical analysis. I really have no plays to make today. I just wanted to get a video up here. It's run a little bit long, 20 minutes, but I hope that helps you and it gives you a little bit of encouragement. If there's anything I can do, you know, I don't charge anything. I mostly do this for my kids and just to kind of document things. But feel free to leave me a comment, and I always do my best to answer and respond. You know, and I do it for free. So, all right, guys, take it easy. I'll see you next video.